Hi, it's Mrs. Logue here, and I want to go over with you guys tonight about our homework. So the homework is all about dividing with decimals and rewriting the remainder as a decimal. So I'm going to walk you through 3 problems. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera around. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with 32 6/10 divided by 4. So you're just going to go ahead and begin. 4 goes into 32 8 times. 8 times 4 is 32. You're going to subtract, you get 0. Bring down the 6. Okay, so again, we're going to repeat the DMSB, divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. 4 goes into 6 one time. 4 times 1 is 4. And we're going to subtract. 6 minus 4 is 2. You're also going to want to make sure you bring that decimal point straight up. Okay, so it looks like we have a remainder of 2, but in 5th grade, you can't leave the remainder as a 2. You have to rewrite it as either a fraction or a decimal. And in this particular lesson, we're going to rewrite it as a decimal. So what I basically need to do to solve this, first of all, a lot of kids will make the mistake of thinking that the 2 just goes up here to become 8 12 hundredths, but that's incorrect. What you're really going to want to do is just continue the DMSB, and to do that, I'm going to add a 0 here, and that does not change the value at all. So 32 6/10 is exactly the same value as 32 60 hundredths. So since it's exactly the same, it does not change the value to add a 0. So now I can bring that 0 down. All right, so let's continue. 4 goes into 20 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. I subtract and get 0. So now, as you can see, there's nothing left to bring down. I do have a 0 at the end. So my final answer is 8 15 hundredths. So all I did here is there already was a decimal point. I added a 0. Did not change the value at all. All right, so let's try another one. So we have 42 divided by 15. So 15 goes into 42. If you think about 15 times 3 will get you 45, which would be too much. So we're going to say it goes in 2 times. So 15 times 2 is 30. Go ahead and subtract. 2 minus 0 is 2. 4 minus 3 is 1. Okay, so now we've got 12. And again, a common mistake is for a student to go and add decimal point 12, and they would be wrong. So that's not what we're going to do here. All right, so again, we basically have to continue the process. So when I look at 42, I can't just add a 0 like I did over in this question, because this one does not have a decimal point in it. So if I add a 0, that's going to change the value from 42 to 420, which is a huge difference. So what I have to do before I add the 0 is add the decimal point, because every whole number has that invisible decimal point there. So once I add the decimal, now I can add the 0, and it does not change the value. So now I can go ahead and bring that 0 down. And then I ask myself, well, how many times does 15 go into 120? Okay, and it actually goes in 8 times. And what I would normally do is have the kids work it out to the side to check. But for sake of the video, it goes in 8 times. So 8 times 15 is 120, and 120 minus 120 is 0. So final step, remember, take the decimal point, bring it directly up, and your answer is 2 8/10. All right, so I have one more to go through with you. So this one, we have 9 divided by 1 2/10. And what I remind my students is you can't have a decimal as your divisor. So I have to change this 1 2/10 into a whole number, and I'm going to be changing it to 12. Now, in order for me to change that 1 2/10 into 12, what I really had to do was multiply it by 10. Because if I move the decimal point over 1 space to make it 12, what I really did was multiply 1 2/10 times 10 to get 12. So I have to do the same thing to my 9. So 9 times 10 is 90. Okay, so now I can divide. So how many times does 12 go into 90? It goes in 7 times. And a lot of times what I will do is tell my students who are not really sure of their division facts to go ahead and just over to the side, they can take the 12 and they can multiply it by the 7 just to double check. So 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 1 is 8 to get you the 84. Now again, a lot of times students will not be proficient with all of their division facts, and you're gonna have to do something like guess and check. So in this case, it does go in 7 times, and we get 84. And we go ahead and subtract. 90 minus 84 is 6. So now again, we're left with that problem. There's nothing left to bring down, but we do have a 6. So same thing, we're gonna have to change that 90 to 90.0 because it doesn't change the value, but it gives us that 0 in order to continue the process. So let's bring down our 0. 12 goes into 60 5 times. 5 times 12 is 60. And 60 minus 60 is 0. And again, final step, make sure that you remember to bring your decimal point directly up, because if you put it in the wrong place, you do get a wrong answer. So that is basically how you divide and rewrite your remainder as a decimal. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Have a great night.